That's good. There we go. Baruch Hashem. Okay, Erev Tov Rabbi say. Somebody wrote into the Hilchos Pesach WhatsApp chat and wanted to know, is cane sugar kosher l'Pesach without kosher l'Pesach hechsher? So in general, it should be kosher. That's important. But this question comes up a lot with regards to products that we would and should assume should have no issue with Pesach whatsoever. Cane sugar is cane sugar. What exactly is this thing? So cane sugar is a product that comes granulated in a bag most of the time. It comes from sugar cane, which looks like bamboo. They chop that up, right? Once it's about a year matured, they chop it up into little pieces. They press the sugar cane pulp to extract liquid, and then that liquid is then purified, crystallized, and then sifted into sugarcane crystals, which should mean that there is zero issue with sugarcane so long as it comes from a reputable place and there's a hechsher telling you that it's kosher, then there should be nothing else in it. However, that is not always the case. About a decade ago, probably a little less, there was a sensational story that all sugar in the world is going to need a hechsher round the clock. There was a yid from the Stockade that wrote up this whole article about it. All sugar in the world is going to need a hechsher. Why? Because there was one Mashiach that went off to like a sugar refinery in China, and they found that one of the chemicals that they were using to refine the sugar is a byproduct of the milk industry. So like they were filtering it through some like lactose derivative, and then he wanted to know, does that make all the sugar milchiks? Does that make all the sugar now not Chalav Yisrael? Like, what exactly happens now with all of the sugar in the world? And they found that there was they did a lot of research, and they found that it was very, very rare. And there was like a once-off thing with this one fellow that was doing this one, whatever. So up until last year, the OU official policy was that as long as cane sugar is cane sugar, not beet sugar, which is the sugar beet is another popular source of sugar, but so long as it is raw, it comes from raw 100% cane sugar, it does not need a special kosher Pesach hechsher. As of last year, to the best of my knowledge, they changed the policy, saying that there's been some innovation within the world of processing and producing sugars, because everybody's trying to make more money and everybody's trying to do things cheaper. And now there's other things that they're using as part of the process, which they know is kosher, but might not be necessarily from sources that are chametz free or kidneys free. And therefore, to that end, they recommended that everybody should buy only kosher l'Pesach cane sugar. They also, I think last year, I haven't seen the official policy yet for this year. Last year they said that if you have cane sugar that is kosher, OU kosher, you can assume if you used it that it was fine. You don't need to throw everything out because it's a far of concern that something, but this is happening more and more. I'll give two more examples just because once upon a time it used to be that, I remember my parents said to me that their parents had, the way that it used to work was you would go to the store, like before Pesach, you would buy another bag of sugar, you would take your bag of sugar that you've been using, you would close it up, put that in the cabinet, open up another bag of sugar, and use, sugar was sugar was sugar was sugar. It was all the same thing. No, it's just, you didn't want to use the one that you'd been using for chametz, but it was all the same thing. The same thing was true for Sfardim once upon a time with rice. So Sfardim are machmir, those that eat rice on Pesach, which is not all Sfardim, even Sfardim that eat kidneys. Moroccans, for example, will not eat rice, right? Moroccans are about there's others. There's the small groups here and there that don't eat rice. And the reason for that is slightly different from Ashkenazim. The reason that many Moroccans don't eat rice is because it's very, very, very hard to check. Meaning it's hard work. You have to make sure not to end up with any chametz in your rice, which is part and parcel of the original minhag of not eating kidneys for Ashkenazim, is because rice was stored with, the wheat and the barley and all the other kinds of grains. They stored the rice together, and these things were part of the same industries and went in the same bags and came from the same places. It used to be, though, that if you were Sephardi and you ate rice on Pesach, so you had to buy your rice, you would then sift your rice, check your rice, and then make your rice for Pesach. Not anymore. Not anymore. Rice in the United States of America needs to have a kosher Pesach hechsher, for meaning le'ochlei kidniyot. Why? Because all other rice in the United States of America is enriched. That doesn't mean it makes you wealthy. It's not like a skula, right? Skula for parnasa, to eat rice, right? That's we should put that on the books. That would be good, right? What does it mean enriched? Enriched means that they add gluten to it. How? They mix it together with, when they process the rice, they mix it together with like flour, and they up the iron content in it. I think that's the official terminology, right? They are enriching it with iron. That iron is coming from chametz sources. Most of the rice that you buy in the United States of America is chametz. It needs to be kosher lePesach, le'ochlei kidiyot, meaning it has to be rice that's just rice. Not always is rice. It's not always the case. And I'll give you another final example with regards to this. Flour. Now, is flour chametz? No. That's what you make matzah out of. Yes? Matzah is made out of flour. But if you go to any matzah bakery, they don't have like the regular, high gluten flour, whatever it might be, right? They don't have the regular baking flour. Why? Because all the flour that you buy commercially in the United States of America, meaning all the stuff that you use to make pastries and challahs and doughs and cookies, whatever it is, all of that flour is washed and flash boiled in order to pasteurize it. Now I'll tell you a secret. If you take flour and you wash it and you boil it, that's now called chametz, right? So they don't do it for a long time, but there is a significant concern of chametz in all of the commercially available flour. So this question comes up. I don't really know anybody that today is brave enough to be baking their own matzahs on Pesach. That's brave. You have to be it's doable. It's doable. There's nothing wrong with baking your own matzahs on Pesach. It is certainly a doable thing. If you have flour and water and you know what you're doing and you have an oven that's hot enough and you've prepared, etc., you can make matzah fresh on Pesach. There is no prohibition of it. In fact, this year, which is a Shabbos Pesach falls out on Matzah Shabbos, the primary minhag in most communities in Europe was the matzah that you ate at the Seder was matzah's mitzvah. It was baked on Erev Pesach. During the time that chametz was already asur, meaning it was supposed to be a high-stakes game. You wanted to have chametz and matzah both being things at the same time in order to be able to create matzah that was the antithesis of chametz. So they would bake their matzahs on Erev Pesach. What about this year? You can't bake matzahs on Erev Pesach. That's called Shabbos. So they would bake the matzahs on Leil HaSeder. Bake the matzahs on Seder night. That was the primary minhag in Europe for many, many, many generations. According to Shittas Rashi, that's the correct way to do things, and that's called matzah's mitzvah. I mean, and this was the common occurrence in most communities in Europe. Also because they didn't have the availability of baking matzahs a long time in advance. Most Jews didn't own ovens that would be able to get to that kind of temperature. So they would rent out an oven from a non-Jewish baker. They would clean out the oven. They would kasher the oven. You can do it. Nobody is brave enough to do it today, and for good reason, because the likelihood of you not messing anything up is not. This is correct. There's nobody's wife will agree to such a high stakes game. I'll tell you, it's not a school for shalom bayis to do such things. So the question is like this: do you need to sell the flour? Do you need to sell the flour? Or do you need to get rid of your flour? Today? Yes. You need to sell your flour because your flour is chametz. Right? A closed bag of unused flour in the United States of America with an OU hechsher on it is chametz. At least we should be significantly concerned that it is chametz. And I share all of this with you because as a general rule, Baruch Hashem, all the companies are trying to make money. And all of the hechsherim are trying to make sure that as many products as they can make kosher lePesach, they make kosher lePesach. One, because it's good for the Jews, and also because it's good for parnasa. Which means that if you see a product that some kashrus place is saying, we don't think that this is necessarily good, kosher lePesach, they want it to be kosher lePesach. This is not like a cartel that they're trying to make your life miserable. Right? They want it to be kosher lePesach. And if it's not, if they're recommending that it's not, It's probably because there is concern that it's not. Now, we'll share all of the lists of all of the kashrus places, meaning the OU and the Chaf K and the Star K and the JSOR, that share all of the products that you can assume are kosher lePesach without a kosher lePesach hechsher. And there's plenty, Baruch Hashem, there's plenty of them. And those things are good, absolutely. But if it's not on one of those lists, and you're like, well, what's wrong with that thing? There's probably something wrong with that thing. Because the production today involves so many different pieces and so many different steps and so many different chemicals that these things become real problems. Sugarcane, as we started with, is a problem potentially. Powdered sugarcane is for sure a problem. Because powdered sugarcane, the fine powdered sugar, that they add an agent to make sure that it's free-flowing and that it doesn't clump up. That agent that they use is sometimes kidney, sometimes chametz. And that's up to 3% of the total of the product. But they don't put that on the ingredients. It just says 100% pure cane sugar. And the thing that makes the cane sugar flow better. But they're not mechuyev to say that it has an extra agent in it but that could be actual chametz. So if it doesn't say kosher lePesach and it's not on one of those lists, it's probably because somewhere in the industrial process something has gone wrong with it. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we should be zeicher to simpler days.